My parents sold my lake house to pay for my sister's $120,000 wedding. They laughing thanks for the wedding present. I smiled and told them to check their mail. Their faces froze when they saw. I was deep in Q3 reconciliation when my laptop pinged with an incoming video call. Wexler Home blinked across the screen, like a warning light. I hesitated, then clicked, accept. My mother's face filled the frame, practically glowing. Leona, sweetheart. We have the most wonderful news. She thrilled, that voice, that tone. It always meant I was about to lose something. I leaned back in my chair, tapping my pen against the desk. What's going on? Dad appeared beside her, grinning like a man who just won the lottery. How Brian's been stressing over the wedding. It's all fixed. Now, I said carefully. Mom clasped her hands together. We sold your lake house. The room tilted. You what? Your lake house, she repeated like I hadn't heard her. We got an amazing offer above asking, and it's perfect. We wired the deposit for the venue this morning. Isn't that incredible? I didn't move. Couldn't that house wasn't just property, it was privacy, it was peace, it was mine. You weren't even using it. Dad added, been sitting empty for years. I've been working, Dad, in Boston, not on vacation. Exactly. Mom chopped. Why? Let a whole house go to waste? Brian deserves a beautiful wedding, and this way she gets everything she's dreamed of. It's your gift to her. I felt something in my chest tighten and lock. That's wonderful. I managed. Mom clapped. I knew you'd understand. You've always been so generous. Brian's going to be thrilled, Dad added. She already is, Mom said. She picked out her dress yesterday. Wait until you see it. It's hand-stitched silk from Italy. They kept talking, smiling like we were planning a vacation and not dissecting my life. I watched their faces full of celebration, utterly oblivious. Anyway, Mom said, adjusting the camera, we just wanted to share the good news. Love you, sweetheart. Love you. I replied with practiced calm and clicked to end the call. The silence that followed was louder than anything they had said. I closed my laptop and reached for my phone. There was only one person I needed to call. I bought the lake house when I was 28 alone. No cosigner, no. Congratulations from home. Just me, a real estate lawyer, and a banker who called me sir in the email chain. It sat on a quiet patch of Lake Champlain with a wide porch and a dock that jutted out like a stubborn jaw. I furnished it slowly, second-hand books, a worn armchair, hand-woven blankets from a Vermont artisan who never remembered my name. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. The one space untouched by guilt, expectation, or performance. I didn't even tell my family until 6 months later. And when I did, my mother barely looked up from her crossword. Must be nice. She'd said that was the first month I started sending money home. It was subtle at first, $300 here. A credit card payment there brings tuition bill, the water heater, Dad's car lease. By the second year, it was automatic, scheduled, sanitized through shell accounts and online transfers. I never mentioned it. They never asked where it came from. It was easier that way for them. At some point, I stopped counting. I stopped visiting the house too. It hurt less to imagine it pristine and untouched than to return and find it filled with other people's needs. But one thing I hadn't forgotten, couldn't forget, was what I'd done 18 months after closing. I moved the deed under a holding company. I set up during grad school, Wet Smart Holdings. It was dormant until I gave it a purpose. No one else knew, not even Natalie. I didn't do it because I expected them to steal from me. I did it because deep down, I knew they might. I pulled out my laptop and opened the encrypted drive. Everything was there: the original deed, the transfer paperwork, the tax filings, a quiet insurance policy, hidden in plain sight. Then I called Natalie, picked up on the second ring. Leona, been a minute. I need a favor. I said, something legal, something big. She didn't miss a beat. I'm listening. I think my parents just sold a house. They didn't known. There was a pause. Come again. I explained everything, how they'd called that morning beaming, like they'd won the lottery, proudly announcing. They'd sold my lake house to pay for Brian's wedding, how they talked about it like I should be proud. And here's the thing, I added, opening the PDF on my screen. They didn't sell my house. They sold a property belonging to Waxman Holdings. Your holding company? Natalie said, voice tightening. The one we created together. Exactly. I moved the deed years ago. I just checked it still under Waxman. They forged my signature on the sale documents. Jesus, Leona. They always knew where the key was, where the paperwork was. I gave them too much trust. You gave them everything, she corrected, and they used it to commit felony fraud. I exhaled slowly. That word makes it real. It is real. If they cashed that check, it's also traceable. I minimized the deed files and sat back in my chair. Do I have a case? Natalie laughed bitterly. You don't just have a case. You have a nuclear bomb, forgery, misrepresentation, theft of corporate assets. This isn't just a family squabble, Leona criminal. I stared at the screen at my parents, smiling faces frozen in the call thumbnail. They thought they'd gotten away with something. They thought I'd not send a gift maybe offered to cover the band. I've been sending them money for years, I said quietly. Mortgage credit cards brings loans. I didn't want recognition. I just didn't want them to drown. Natalie's tone softened, and they turned around and dragged you under anyway. I should have cut them off. You bought yourself an island. They just paddled out after you. I didn't respond. I was already drafting the paperwork. My hand didn't shake. Not this time. Let me guess, Natalie said. You're not calling to vent. No, I said. I'm calling to fight. Template was already in Natalie files. We modified it, swapped names, dates, property ID, then ran it through WEX, Months Council for formal review. Within 48 hours, a foreclosure notice was prepped, notarized, and sent to my parents' front door via certified mail. No threats, no explanations, just the facts. The sale was unauthorized, the buyer defrauded and all proceeds frozen, pending legal investigation. Waxman Holdings was asserting its rights. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't even call. Instead, I opened our old family group chat, the one muted for over a year, and sent a single message. Check your mail. That was it. Then I closed the app, shut my laptop, and made tea. I waited in the stillness of my apartment, the only noise, the clink of the spoon against porcelain. The silence was sharp, but not empty. They'd wanted me quiet, obedient, the background figure who kept the lights on. I gave them what they asked for, a version of quiet. They wouldn't know how to handle. By morning, 3 messages blinked across my screen. One from Mom, honey, did something happen? The mailman dropped off something confusing. One from Dad, we should talk, Leona, and one from Brian. This is about your stupid house, isn't it? I didn't answer. I forwarded them all to Natalie. She replied 2 minutes later. They're rattled. Good. Put my phone face down on the table and looked out at the gray Boston skyline. I hadn't won yet, but something had shifted. Once I wasn't the one waiting to be forgiven. I wasn't the one cleaning up someone else's mess. This time they were going to feel what it was like to stand in a storm they couldn't see coming. The first email from Destiny landed at 6:42 a.m. Subject: urgent payment issues, Gilmore wedding. She was polite at first, almost apologetic. Hi Leona. I'm following up regarding several bounced payments connected to the upcoming event. The venue has requested immediate confirmation, and the florist is asking for a new deposit. Can someone from your family give me a call? I didn't reply by noon. There were 5 more. Tone shifted. Desperation bled through the sentences. The band is demanding cash up front. The Grand Vista says they're releasing your date if they don't hear back in 48 hours. Please advise ASAP. I screenshot at each message and forwarded them to Natalie. She responded with a single thumbs up. Meanwhile, Brian was posting. Bridal self is like nothing was wrong. Her Instagram was a wedding countdown in soft pastels. Lace robes, manicured hands, champagne flutes, balanced on pedicured toes. Final fitting before the big day. Can't wait to marry my prince, blessed and glowing. The comments were full of heart emojis and goals. None of her followers knew the checks were bouncing, or that the string quartet hadn't confirmed the illusion held for now. But I could see the cracks forming that evening. I opened a bottle of wine and read the latest from Destiny. This one was marked urgent response required. Hi Leona. I've now received warnings from 7 vendors about pending cancellations. I've tried contacting your parents, but haven't heard back. I need to know what's going on. Please. My name is on some of these contracts. My reputation is at risk. Still, I said nothing. They built this fantasy on money, they didn't own on a house that wasn't theirs, and on the belief that I'd stay silent forever. But silence doesn't mean surrender. I poured another glass and opened the file. Natalie had sent the official injunction paperwork prepped for filing in the morning. This was no longer a warning. It was the beginning of the collapse. By 9:15 a.m., Natalie had filed the injunction. Court clerk confirmed receipt. The judge assigned to our case had a reputation for efficiency, and within hours a temporary restraining order was issued. The sale was frozen. All funds flagged for fraud investigation. Waxman Holdings' legal standing was now official. My parents hadn't just sold a house. They'd tried to launder stolen property through a closed loop of entitlement and assumption. I didn't need to announce it. The avalanche started on its own. By late afternoon, my phone began to buzz. The family group chat, silent for months, lit up like a flare. Mom, honey, there's some issue with the bank. Can you check? Dad, Leona. We're getting strange calls from the title company. Brian, what did you do? I didn't reply. Then came the phone calls. 10 missed calls in under 30 minutes. I muted the thread and set my phone face down on the counter. Let them spiral, let them guess. I opened my laptop to an email from the escrow officer CCing my attorney. All disbursements have been placed on hold pending legal review. Another message followed minutes later from the buyer's real estate agent. Please contact us immediately to clarify the ownership structure. Our client is extremely concerned. I took a long sip of coffee and refreshed Destiny's inbox. A new subject line had appeared: help. I'm losing control of the wedding. She had no idea just how much worse it was about to get. I didn't enjoy watching things fall apart. Not in the way Brian would have had it been reversed, but there was a quiet, brutal satisfaction in letting cause meet effect. They'd acted without asking, without checking, without once considering that I might not just lie down and take it. Now the money was locked, the timeline was wrecked, and every call they made bounced off the same wall: my silence. I closed every tab but one, the live status of the restraining order. Active, it read. Natalie tested. They're going to feel this by morning. I didn't answer. I just watched. Call came just after midnight. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Part of me wanted to hear how far they'd fall. In Leona. My mother's voice was hoarse, almost unrecognizable. Sweetheart. Please don't hang up. I didn't say anything. Dad's voice came next to brittle, but still trying for calm. We just need to talk. There's been some confusion, something with the bank? You mean, the fraud investigation? I said that confusion. A silence stretched. Leona. We didn't know, Mom whispered. You thought what? My voice didn't rise, didn't need to. The house was just sitting there waiting for you to sell, that you were entitled to something you never earned. We needed the money. She said, almost childlike. Burns' wedding. You've had money, I cut in. $2,800 a month for 4 years. Paid your mortgage, covered your credit cards, car payments, half of Britain's tuition. More silence. I thought it was from a relative, Dad murmured. It was, I said. The one you raised, the one you taught to be useful, not loved. Mom started crying, loud, hiccuping sobs. We didn't know it was you. No, you didn't want to know, because if you knew, you'd have to feel guilty about how easy it was to take. We were just trying to keep things afloat. Dad said, you're doing so well, and that's why you thought I wouldn't notice when you stole from me. Don't say that, Mom cried. We are family. No, I said softly. You didn't raise a daughter. You raised a safety net. There was no yelling on the other end, no excuses left. I was your guardian angel, I said, and you stole from her. I hung up. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing else left to say. My phone lit up again, seconds later. I powered it off and sat in the dark, the only sound in the room, my own breath. They weren't calling to make it right. They were calling because they finally realized what it meant to lose me. The headline hit the local news 2 days before the hearing: bride's family accused of real estate fraud to fund 120 coy wedding. I didn't leak it, but I didn't stop it either. Destiny, the planner, gave a statement to the press, tearful, angry. Said she had been misled, that she was left with thousands in vendor losses and a ruined reputation. Comments were brutal. The sympathy wasn't with Brian. In court, the prosecutor laid out everything: the forged signatures, the illegal sale, the financial trail tracing back to Waxman Holdings. Called me to the stand. First, I spoke plainly. No tears, no vengeance, just numbers, timelines, and receipts. My parents sat at the defense table, stiff and pale. Their lawyer didn't say much. There wasn't much to say. Then Brian took the stand. She lasted 3 minutes before unraveling. "She's jealous," she shouted, pointing at me. "She's always been jealous. She couldn't stand that it was my turn to be happy. Miss Wexler, the judge warned she doesn't want a family. She just wants to ruin everything." Security was already moving before the judge gave the order. They escorted her out as she kicked over her chair. The room was silent. Again. The judge turned to my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Wexler, you didn't just violate the law. You violated trust. You didn't ask. You didn't warn. You forged your daughter's name and treated her property like a family." ATM Mom's lip trembled. Dad just stared at the floor. "When you forged her name," the judge said coldly, "you forfeited the right to call yourself her family." The gavel came down. Charges were filed. Sentencing would follow. Outside, cameras waited. I said nothing, just kept walking past reporters, past flashbulbs, past to the courthouse steps. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt finished. The lake house looked exactly the same. Same chipped white shutters, same creaky porch step, same wind chimes. My mother once bought on a roadside trip and forgot about the next day, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I walked through each room slowly. Furniture was just as I'd left it, intact, untouched. But something in the air had shifted. It smelled like memory, not home. Every corner held a ghost of something that used to comfort me. Now it just reminded me how easily comfort can be turned against you. I paused by the bookshelf, fingers tracing the spine of a novel I'd reread during one long winter break. I used to dream in this house, plan futures, breathe freely. Then I thought about the call, the one where they told me it was gone, like it had never mattered. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked out over the lake, still as glass. It had been my sanctuary, my proof that I could build something without them. Now, it was just a box full of someone else's assumptions. I stood, pulled the keyring from my pocket, and walked back to the kitchen. There was no dramatic gesture, no slam. I simply placed the keys on the counter, a quiet exit from a place that no longer needed me, and that I no longer needed. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back in Boston. I sat on the floor of my apartment and opened my contacts. One by one, I deleted them. Mom, Dad, Brian, every cousin who sent guilt-laced messages about keeping the family together. It didn't sting, it felt like cleaning. Then I opened a new account at a small credit union. No one in my past had access to, no joint permissions, no auto transfers, just mine. When the call came, I almost let it go to voicemail. But I answered. "This is Detective Rao." The voice said, "I thought you'd want to know your case as leading to others. We've had 3 more adult children report financial abuse since your hearing. They saw your story for a moment. I didn't speak. Then I said, good. Sometimes it takes one person being willing to burn the whole thing down. I didn't burn it. I said they did. I just stopped shielding them from the smoke, paused, then thanked me and hung up. I stared at the screen a little longer, then shut it off. That night, I packed a small bag. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. No one needed to know. The only destination that mattered was somewhere they couldn't follow. At sunrise, I boarded a train, headed north. I didn't have an address, just an idea. The trees blurred past the window, and for the first time in years, I wasn't calculating anyone else's needs. I wasn't checking my balance to cover someone else's mistake. Phone in my lap didn't buzz once. No one knew where I was, no one expected anything. And for the first time in my life, that silence didn't feel like exile, felt like freedom.